It's amazing to think, just a few months ago, I paddled across this lake in a canoe. Now there's a metre of ice beneath me and I can just walk across it. It's a fascinating landscape. In the summer, you have the canoe and the canoe paddles. In the winter, it's the toboggan and the snowshoe. This is the beaver lodge that I visited back in the summer. They've obviously completed it and now it's covered in snow. Somewhere out here was their food raft, I think just there actually. In here the beavers can overwinter. They can get access to their food under the ice, which prevents them falling victim to predators on the surface. And the snow is their insulation. And snow is a strange material. If I were to take my hand and put it into the snow, it's going to come out freezing cold. But actually snow is full of air. And when it lies as a blanket like this, it provides fantastic insulation for anything underneath it, including the beavers. It's a wonderful place to be though, and it's fantastic to be able to come back to the same spot months later and see it when it's got its winter coat on. Wonderful.
This cabin is a personal pilgrimage. The man who lived here was one of the first to understand the need to protect our wild places. It's odd that a place so vast should need protection.
Now, this is a very special cabin. I have to come here. I couldn't possibly come to Prince Albert National Park and not visit this particular cabin. This was occupied by one of the greats of conservation and one of my personal heroes. He was an Englishman, a boy who grew up in Hastings called Archie Bellany, but he came to be known as Grey Owl. He had this dream of living as a North American Indian here in the Northwoods, and he made his dream come true. But perhaps more importantly, he wrote a series of very important and significant works of conservation, talking about the forest here, the wildlife, and the people who inhabited it. His books were way ahead of their time, and they brought the message of conservation, of a respect for nature, into the living rooms of thousands of people all over the world. It's a very special place to be. It's very peaceful, it's very quiet, it's very of the man.
When Europeans did start to explore this land, they brought tents with them. Planning and preparation, as always, were the key to survival here.
There's no doubt this is a really pretty environment, and there's no reason why you can't camp here despite the cold temperatures. But there is a lot to know. You have to be able to read the conditions. And these conditions, this pretty snow, is pretty awful. It's not good weather to be travelling in. You tend to sweat, you get wet, and when you get wet, you get cold. So my intention now is just to show you how you can put a tent up in these conditions. I've come into the trees, not the ideal campsite here. I'd like to have found somewhere with more firewood close to hand, but there is firewood. But the trees are giving me good shelter from the wind, and that's a help. First job is to tamp the snow down so that it will freeze and give me a solid surface on which to work. The snow covers things so quickly. You need to be very organised so that you don't lose things. So in here I've got things like my shovel, my axe, my mothership, the big jacket I put on if the weather's really cold, those sorts of things. Try to keep your hands dry. When people who are new to the north learn the hard way to keep their hands dry. If your hands get wet in the snow, they will get cold.
In the winter, it's definitely not just a case of chopping down a few trees and making a shelter. You can never take this environment lightly. You have to have wisdom and experience. And with those, it's perfectly possible to live here comfortably long term.
I've come out to look for firewood. Now, if there were two of us, one of us would come out and collect all the firewood for the night, but when I'm on my own, what I like to do is to come out, have a little scout around first, take back enough to get the stove going, to get a brew on, and then come back with the toboggan to fill up with the other things that I found. One of the difficulties in this environment is knowing whether wood is dry and dead, or green, or even sopping wet and just frozen, because they're all brittle. There's a trick. If you take your knife or an axe and you cut a sliver of the wood, put it on your tongue, if it's damp, it's moisture as it thaws on your tongue. If it's dry, it's like a piece of blotting paper, and that is moist. I'm going to have that small pine there for the moment. I think that'll be perfect. Well, that's a great feeling. I've got the tent up, I've got the stove on, the fire's going, and that is a very important thing. When you're tired and you're cold, it really raises your spirits. I've already got some snow melting on there for a brew. The key thing, though, is that with a tent and a wood-burning stove, it doesn't matter if you're wet, because you're going to get dry. That's the key thing. In extreme cold, moisture builds up in your clothing and your sleeping equipment, and it's very difficult to get rid of that. But in this tent, even if it's minus 35 degrees outside, I know from testing it that with the fire going full on, at ground level I get plus 28 degrees. At the ridge, it's much higher, and up there I'll hang all my clothes and I get them dry. And that's the key thing. It means that you can continue going for a long period of time. It's perfectly possible to sleep out, even in very low temperatures if you have a big fire. But eventually, that moisture builds up in your clothing and you have to head indoors. With a tent like this, you've got a sustained period outdoors without any problems.
In some ways, it's